Now, Peter Feuchtwanger was a very important piano teacher internationally. He lived in London. He passed away, sadly, a couple of years ago. And the piano world lost a very important guru-like figure, I would say, in Peter. Now, my history with him, I wasn't really a student of his, but I did study the exercises, his exercises, with him. And I found them enormously beneficial, and I passed them on to students. Now, this is my take on them. You will see I've got a series of videos coming up here with some of the exercises that I have selected that I think are the best of the lot. And so it's most of them. A couple I didn't really quite get. But if I just give you a little bit of background into how I came to know Peter, I was already a young professional, teaching piano at the Purcell School and various other places in London, based in London. So I was already sort of starting out in my teaching career. And I met Peter at a lecture. He was giving a lecture demonstration, Masterclass actually, on Beethoven Opus 110, and I went back to meet him afterwards. And said how wonderful it was to meet him, and he said, "Oh, nice to meet you too, and would you happen to be free next week to come to Germany and sit in on my classes in Germany?" And it happened to be summer holidays, and I was young, and I thought, yes, let's do it. So I just went across to Germany, sat in on his master classes, and on the last day he was working with a student in a small sort of teaching room. So we were all sitting around the piano and he was demonstrating the exercises. The master classes had been more or less kind of on the music, but the last day was on his exercises. And I can remember being totally shocked by these, really shocked by these exercises, to the point that I had to leave the room halfway through. I was seeing all this collapsed stuff, all the opposite of what I knew to be true about, or believed to be true about piano technique and piano playing. So I can remember leaving the room and walking up and down the hallway, sort of like this. What on earth is this man doing? And I couldn't really accept what he was doing. So anyway, I went back to the room at the end, didn't want to appear rude. And then after the class, he said, "You must come visit me in London and I'll show you my exercises." So, yeah, I'm up for that. I've always been inquisitive and curious about piano methodology. So we made the appointment, and I went round one afternoon. I can remember it being a summer afternoon, and the first thing I was struck by was that I could not raise the piano stool more than about that much, because he'd sawn the legs off both piano stools to prevent anybody sitting high. He liked people to sit low so that they could use, not this supported muscular position, but rather low, hanging like this, if you can imagine, and then everything coming from the arm, which was like a dead arm almost. There was no kind of bracing in the arm, no posturing in the arm. So one kind of hung from the keyboard, whether you liked it or not. You couldn't say, "Well, excuse me, Peter, but I like to sit higher." You had to sit low. And then the exercises themselves, when he showed me them, I was thinking, what on earth are these? Where is this coming from? But I was very dutiful and respectful, as I still am, of them. And I was reeling when I came out of his apartment an hour or so later. He'd given me a bunch of them. I don't think he gave me all of them, but he gave me a bunch of them. And he said, "Come back in a couple of days or next week or whenever it was, and we'll go through them again." But the funny thing was, when I left to go down to the underground station at South Kensington, in those days there was a big advertising sort of hoarding there, advertising various products. And there was one on that particular occasion advertising a famous brand of sneakers, trainers. I won't say what it was, but the slogan was, "Everything you know is wrong." And I thought, well, this is interesting, because I've just come out from an experience with this kind of guru figure, and I'm being told subliminally, "Everything you know is wrong." But I was prepared to go through this adventure. So there I went every day, practiced these things to the best of my ability, went back to see him many times actually over the course of several weeks, maybe several months, where he would refine what I was doing until I got to the point where I could start to feel, yes, this is really putting my playing into kind of neutral. So it felt like I was doing virtually nothing when I played the piano. using his exercises, which felt a little bit strange after my Russian-based background, a muscular-based approach to piano playing. So but he never explained what he was doing. He never said, "Now this exercise is for this," or "This does this." You just had to kind of, I wouldn't say blindly follow, but trustingly follow what he was doing. Maybe he explained to other people what these exercises did, but he never explained it to me. And I practiced them, and I noticed that after I practiced them for a few weeks, my playing felt a whole lot freer. And I guess really what they do is they do minimal effort, minimal, what's the word I'm looking for? The opposite of tension, if you want. So any tension that there might be in the playing, or any over-exertion that there might be in your playing, would be flagged up having done these exercises first. So if you weren't one of his regular students and you used these exercises, you'd get great benefit from them in, I would say, the long term, in the medium term, certainly not after a couple of days. And I used them in my teaching, and I found that very, very good for the beginnings of tension-related injuries or problems that were related to overexertion. And again, I would very much recommend them to people who are overdoing things. So it just basically puts the playing in neutral, so that when you come back to your regular way of playing, everything just feels looser and freer and easier. But the trick is to sit low, to do the thing that you think is awful, which is to collapse all the knuckles, and to use the movements that he used, which were really generated from throwing movements of the arm, nothing in the fingers. The fingers were all kind of collapsed. So a fascinating approach to exercises, and Peter's students are now all over the world, international careers, who have come from this, and he was a one-off. He really was a one-off, and I think he's very, very sadly missed in the piano world. So do try them out. You probably find, if you're a piano teacher, you will reject them to start with, but a little bit of perseverance and you'll find the gold in there.